Unidentified vessel. This is the Galactic Confederation cruiser Starweaver. Your presence has been noted. Prepare for standard integration procedures. Captain Emily Anderson stood on the bridge of the TNS Ghost, a knowing smile playing across her features as the alien transmission echoed through the command center. The Ghost was humanity's first deep space destroyer, and while her hull might look primitive to the advanced Confederation sensors, that was exactly the point. "Status report," she called out, her voice steady despite the tension crackling through the bridge. Lieutenant James Rodriguez at Tactical responded first. "Their weapons are hot, Captain, but their shields show unusual gaps. Looks like they're running some kind of energy web instead of traditional barrier fields." "Interesting." Anderson leaned forward in her chair. 6 months of long-range observation had taught them much about Confederation technology. The aliens relied heavily on their AI systems, which made them predictable. "They're expecting us to either run or submit." Status of the masking system. Operating at full capacity, Chief Engineer Sarah Martinez reported from her station. "As far as their sensors can tell, we're running on basic fusion and chemical thrusters. All advanced systems are hidden behind the electromagnetic shroud." The Starweaver's next transmission came through with an edge of impatience. "Unidentified vessel, your design architecture is unknown to our database. Submit to immediate integration scan or face disablement." Anderson's smile widened. The Confederation's standard protocol was about to meet humanity's gift for unconventional thinking. "All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for combat maneuver Ghost 1. The bridge crew moved with practiced precision. They'd drilled this hundreds of times, knowing first contact would likely come to this. Humanity had watched the Confederation for months, witnessing their peaceful integration of 2 other species. Integration meant subjugation, and humans didn't do well with subjugation. "They're powering up their forward battery," Rodriguez reported. "Looks like some kind of particle beam weapon, designed to disable rather than destroy." "Perfect." Anderson keyed her commands into the tactical display. "Engineering, on my mark. Drop the masking field and bring all systems to combat power. Helm, prepare for full burn on the following vector." The Confederation ship grew larger on their main display, its sleek lines and crystalline architecture a sharp contrast to the Ghost's utilitarian design. They were about to learn that beauty didn't equal combat effectiveness. "Incoming energy spike," Rodriguez called out. "They're firing." "Execute Ghost 1," Anderson ordered. What happened next would be studied in both human and Confederation military academies for years to come. As the Starweaver's particle beam lanced out, the Ghost's supposedly primitive hull shed its electromagnetic camouflage. Hidden energy sinks absorbed the attack, while military-grade engines, far more advanced than the Confederation had detected, roared to life. The Ghost executed a maneuver that the Confederation's combat AI classified as physically impossible. A high G turn that would have killed any of their species. But the Ghost's crew, protected by inertial systems derived from humanity's early experiments with high-speed space travel, endured. "Target their port energy web emitter," Anderson commanded as the Ghost completed its turn. "Fire when ready." The Ghost's main gun, a humble-looking turret that concealed a state-of-the-art magnetic accelerator, spat a stream of hypersonic projectiles. The Confederation's energy web, designed to stop energy weapons, proved far less effective against good old-fashioned tungsten slugs moving at appreciable fractions of light speed. The Starweaver's port side erupted in a cascade of breaking energy fields and secondary explosions. The alien vessel listed to one side, its elegant form now marred by the Ghost's precise strike. "FTL drive spooled and ready," Lieutenant Jessica Chen reported from navigation. "Message buoy prepared," Communications Officer Michael Hayes added. "Ready to deploy." Anderson nodded, knowing this was just the beginning. Deploy the buoy and jump us out. Let's give them something to think about." As the Ghost disappeared into FTL, it left behind a simple message broadcasting on all frequencies. The galaxy is not yours alone. Humanity will not submit. Remember the Ghost of Orion. In the weeks that followed, the Confederation would review the encounter thousands of times, their analysts struggling to understand how they'd been so thoroughly outmaneuvered by what they'd dismissed as a primitive species. They would learn, too late, that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was their ability to think beyond the expected, to turn apparent weakness into strength, and to fight with both intelligence and determination. The warning that would soon flash across Confederation displays, "Caution, Terran Warship detected," was more than just an alert. It was an admission that the galaxy's dominant power had met its match in the species they'd tried to subjugate. High Commander Zextal stared at the holographic display with all four eyes, each focused on a different aspect of the data streaming before him. The more he learned about these humans, the more his scales prickled with unease. "Play the training simulation again," he ordered. The hologram shifted, showing what the humans called a video game. Young humans, some barely out of their growth phase, coordinated complex space battle tactics through these entertainment devices. What the Confederation had initially dismissed as simple pleasure activities were, in fact, sophisticated combat training tools. Fascinating, isn't it? Dr. Lixtel, the leading xenoanthropologist, moved to stand beside him. They don't even realize they're training their young for war. It's simply entertainment to them. The display changed again, showing environmental data from Earth. The humans' homeworld would be classified as a Category 4 death world by Confederation standards. Extreme temperature variations, powerful storms, large predators, and areas of lethal radiation from their sun. Yet the humans didn't just survive there. They thrived. "Our latest intelligence is disturbing," Zextal said, pulling up another report. Their entertainment media contains something they call action movies. Our psychological analysis suggests these would be considered horror content by any rational species. They watch simulated combat and death for pleasure. Dr. Lixtel's scales shifted to a pale green of concern. "That's not the most worrying part, Commander. Look at their historical records." The display filled with images of human warfare through the ages. Unlike every other known species, humans had developed combat tactics before achieving spaceflight. While the Confederation had created weapons only after encountering other species, humans had been fighting among themselves for their entire recorded history. "They call it military science," Dr. Lixtel continued. "They've turned warfare into an art form. Every major technological advancement in their history has some connection to combat application. Even their medical technology was largely developed to deal with battle injuries." Zextal brought up the report from the Starweaver incident. "The Ghost's maneuver makes more sense now. They've adapted something called submarine warfare to space combat. Fighting in 3 dimensions isn't just a tactical choice for them, it's cultural memory." A junior analyst rushed into the chamber, his scales flushed with excitement. "Commander, we've intercepted something you need to see." The hologram changed to show a human entertainment broadcast. Children were playing something called Capture the Flag, dividing into teams, using complex flanking maneuvers, and employing basic military strategies, all without any adult instruction. "By the first light," Dr. Lixtel whispered, "they're not just adapted to combat, they're evolved for it. Even their recreation simulates warfare." Zextal's secondary heart began to race as the implications became clear. The Confederation's attempt to access Earth's information networks had been met with something their best AI systems couldn't comprehend: humor. The humans had created something called honeypots, fake data nodes that led their systems into endless loops of something called memes and rickrolls. Their entire species is a warrior culture, he realized. But not like the militant Krixar or the warrior clans of Nexus Prime. They've made combat into an art, a science, and entertainment all at once. They don't just accept violence. They study it, refine it, and pass it down through generations as both warning and instruction. A new alert flashed across the display. Another human ship had been detected, this one near the Proxima Centauri colony. Unlike the Ghost, this vessel made no attempt to hide. It moved with deliberate purpose, its course a clear challenge to Confederation authority. "They're testing our responses," Zextal said, his scales now a deep blue of determination. "Each encounter is a learning experience for them. They're building a profile of our capabilities, just as we're studying theirs." Dr. Lixtel's final words sent a chill through the chamber. "Commander, I don't think the Ghost incident was first contact at all. I think it was a test. Their way of gauging our intentions, and based on our response. We failed," Zextal finished. "And now, the real battle begins." The warning that had once seemed like a simple caution, Terran Warship detected, now carried a much darker meaning. The Confederation hadn't found another species to integrate. They'd awakened a race of warriors who had been preparing for this moment their entire existence, whether they knew it or not. "All right, you beautiful bastards," Colonel Jack Harrison's voice echoed through the underground bunker of Proxima Colony. "They're coming in hot, and they think this is going to be easy. Let's show them why you don't corner lions in their own den." The Colonial Marines, all 200 of them, stood at attention. They were outnumbered 20-1 by the approaching Confederation fleet, but the grins on their faces suggested they liked those odds just fine. "Mining Complex Alpha is our kill box," Harrison continued, pointing to the holographic display. "They'll think it's just another industrial site. They don't know about the modifications we've made since we got word of the Ghost incident." Lieutenant Sarah Cooper, head of engineering, stepped forward. "We've rigged every mining laser to double as an anti-ship battery. The mineral processing plants are now chemical weapons factories. And those harmless maintenance drones, each one's packed with enough explosives to punch through their crystal ships." The first shots came at dawn, local time. The Confederation's fleet descended through Proxima's blood-red sky, their ships arranged in perfect formation. Their tactical AI had calculated a 3-day operation. 1 day to establish orbital superiority, 1 day to secure the ground, and 1 day to process the survivors. They never saw the first strike coming. As their landing ships approached Mining Complex Alpha, the entire facility seemed to power down. Confederation sensors registered it as a surrender response, exactly as planned. The ships moved in close, preparing to deploy their integration teams. That's when the trap sprung. "Light M up," Harrison ordered through the secure channel. Every mining laser in the complex swiveled and fired simultaneously. The beams, originally designed to cut through solid rock, sliced through the Confederation's energy webs like they were paper. 3 landing ships erupted in balls of fire before their AI could even register the attack. "Secondary teams, you're up." From the maintenance tunnels that honeycombed the colony, small teams of Marines emerged. Each carried what looked like mining equipment. Tools the Confederation's threat assessment programs didn't even bother to flag. But these weren't normal tools. The plasma cutters had been modified into short-range energy weapons, and the sonic drills now fired concentrated bursts that could shatter crystal armor. "Sir," a young Marine called out, "they're adapting. Their shields are changing frequency." Harrison grinned. "Right on schedule. Release the drones." Hundreds of maintenance drones swarmed from hidden hangars. The Confederation's AI, programmed to target weapons and soldiers, initially ignored them. By the time they realized their mistake, it was too late. The drones slammed into their ships, each explosion taking out another piece of their perfect formation. "They're pulling back," Cooper reported, regrouping at high orbit. And now they know we've got teeth. Harrison said, but that's not the best part. Show them what you cooked up in the labs, Lieutenant. Cooper activated the colony's long-range transmitters. The signal they broadcast was simple, just a series of random energy pulses. But to the Confederation's heavily automated ships, those pulses looked like system commands. Their communication networks crashed as conflicting orders flooded their networks. "Sir," one of the Marine techs called out. Intercepted transmission from their command ship. They're calling us combat demons." Harrison laughed. "Well, that's a step up from primitives. How long until they regroup?" "At their current speed of adaptation, maybe 2 hours." "Perfect. Just enough time to show them our next surprise." You know what they say about humans, Marines. The entire bunker responded in unison. We don't just fight. We evolve. As the sun set on Proxima's first day of siege, the Confederation's perfect 3-day plan lay in ruins. Their ships retreated to safe orbit, their AIs struggling to process how a simple mining colony had inflicted such damage. They would soon learn that this was just the beginning, that every defeat would make the humans stronger, every setback would spawn new tactics. The Lions of Proxima had made their first kill, and they were just getting started. The colony's warning beacons broadcast a simple message to the Confederation fleet. "Come on down. We've got 3 months of surprises waiting for you." Tech Commander Rebecca Morgan stood in the colony's main control center, her eyes fixed on the holographic display of the battlefield above. 3 weeks into the siege, and the Confederation still hadn't learned their most important lesson about humans. Everything was a weapon if you were creative enough. "Status on Project Thunderstorm?" she asked, watching as another wave of Confederation ships entered the atmosphere. Lieutenant Marcus Williams grinned as he pulled up the relevant data. "The atmosphere processors are ready. Those fancy ships of theirs are about to learn why we call this the Lightning Zone." Above the colony, the Confederation fleet moved in their standard perfect formation. Their tactical AI had finally adapted to the humans' mining laser defense grid, creating shield harmonics that could deflect the repurposed industrial equipment. They expected the humans to be running out of tricks. They were wrong. "Initiate Thunderstorm Protocol," Morgan ordered. "Let's show them why Earth's weather made us who we are." The massive atmosphere processors, originally designed to make Proxima's air more breathable, spun up to maximum power. But instead of processing air, they were now generating massive electrical charges in the upper atmosphere. The Confederation's ships, their crystal hulls acting as perfect conductors, never stood a chance. Multiple direct strikes. Williams called out, "Their shields are failing." "Wait, they're adapting again. Switching to emergency protocols." Morgan nodded. "Right on schedule. Deploy the garbage miners." What the Confederation saw next would be recorded in their military archives as the moment they realized just how dangerous humans could be. Hundreds of small, seemingly derelict mining drones emerged from the colony's recycling centers. The Confederation ignored them. Their scans showed nothing but space debris. But this debris had a mind of its own. Magnetic pulse in 3, 2, 1. Morgan counted down. The debris field suddenly came alive, each piece charged with electromagnetic energy. They attached themselves to the Confederation ships' hulls, creating interference patterns that disrupted their crystalline structure. "They're sending in ground forces," someone shouted. "Looks like they finally figured out they can't win from orbit." Morgan's smile turned predatory. "Perfect. Colonel Harrison, you're up." The ground battle proved even more surprising for the Confederation forces. They found every surface rigged with repurposed mining charges. Their energy weapons were reflected back at them by cleverly placed mineral processing mirrors. Even the colony's waste management system had been turned into a weapon, spraying corrosive compounds that ate through their advanced armor. "Ma'am," Williams called out, They're trying to hack our systems again." "Let them in," Morgan ordered. "Operation Hall of Mirrors is a go." The Confederation's AI combat systems connected with what they thought was the colony's main computer. Instead, they found themselves in a virtual maze built from centuries of human video game design. As their processing power was tied up trying to navigate the artificial environment, the real attack began. "All units, execute Protocol Ragnarok," Morgan commanded. The colony's true defense grid activated. Every speaker, every communication device, every electronic system began broadcasting a cacophony of signals. To the Confederation's sophisticated but rigid communication systems, it was like being caught in a hurricane of noise. "Their fleet is in disarray," Williams reported with satisfaction. "Their formation is breaking. They're actually running into each other." Morgan watched as the perfect order of the Confederation fleet dissolved into chaos. "Humans 2, advanced A0, she muttered. "Launch the Miners Special." The colony's last line of defense deployed. Automated mining pods that had been stripped down and rebuilt into crude but effective missiles. They weren't elegant or advanced, but they carried enough explosives to make their point. As the Confederation forces retreated once again, Morgan received a message from Colonel Harrison. "The Lions send their thanks for the fireworks show. Enemy casualties high. Morale through the roof. Status of defense systems." Morgan looked at her team, each of them already working on new ways to turn their industrial equipment into weapons. "Tell the Colonel we're just getting started. These aliens think they've seen human ingenuity. Wait until they see what we're building next." The message they broadcast to the retreating Confederation ships was simple. "Thanks for the combat data. We'll do better next time." And they would. Because that was what humans did best. They adapted, they improved, and they never, ever gave up. Admiral James Cooper stood on the bridge of the TNS Normandy, his expression grim as he studied the tactical display. Operation Starwolf was about to begin, and with it, humanity's first major counteroffensive against the Confederation. "Status report on the wolf packs," he ordered, his voice carrying the weight of 20 years of naval command. Commander Elizabeth Hayes responded from her station. "All 6 packs are in position, Admiral." The Confederates still think they're tracking a single fleet. Cooper allowed himself a small smile. The Confederation had never encountered the concept of wolf pack tactics, the idea of breaking up forces into small, coordinated hunting groups. Their rigid military doctrine called for massed formations and overwhelming force. "Launch the bait," Cooper ordered. "Let's see if they're as predictable as we think." The TNS Salem, an older destroyer retrofitted for this mission, emerged from its hiding spot behind a mineral-rich asteroid. Its systems broadcasted false signatures that made it appear damaged, easy prey for the Confederation's hunting fleets. "Contact," Hayes reported. 3 Confederate cruisers moving to intercept the Salem. They're deploying in standard pursuit formation. Cooper nodded. "Just like the history books. They're acting like ancient surface ships chasing a submarine. Time to show them why that's a mistake. Signal the wolf packs." What happened next would revolutionize space combat forever. As the Confederate ships focused their attention on the Salem, 5 other human task forces emerged from various hidden positions. They came from above, below, and behind. Directions the Confederation's 2-dimensional combat doctrine hadn't thought to guard. Multiple impacts. Hayes called out. "Wolfpack Alpha has disabled the lead cruiser's primary drive. Beta and Charlie are engaging their escort ships." The space around the Confederate formation erupted in a dance of kinetic strikes and energy weapons. The human ships moved in seemingly random patterns, their trajectories defying the Confederation's predictive combat software. "Sir," Lieutenant Rachel Martinez called from communications, "we're picking up their command transmissions. Their AI can't calculate our attack patterns. They're switching to manual control." Cooper's smile grew broader. That's what we wanted. Their crews have never had to fight without their AI support. Execute Phase 2. The Salem, far from being helpless prey, suddenly reversed course. Its damaged systems came online at full power, revealing a ship specifically modified for electronic warfare. It began broadcasting a cacophony of false signals and phantom targets. Confederate formation is breaking down, Hayes reported with satisfaction. Their ships are starting to fire at sensor ghosts. The bridge crew watched as the once proud Confederate squadron fell into disarray. Without their AI to coordinate their actions, each ship began fighting independently, exactly what the wolf packs had been waiting for. Individual ship commanders think differently than their eye, Cooper explained to his bridge crew. They'll try to protect each other, form defensive circles, and that's when we strike their supply lines. Right on cue, Wolfpack Delta emerged from FTL behind the Confederate support ships. These vessels, normally protected by the combat ships' perfect formation, now found themselves exposed. Supply ships disabled, Hayes announced. Confederate combat vessels are now operating unlimited resources. Cooper keyed his command channel. All wolf packs, execute hit and fade. Don't give them time to adapt. The human ships struck from multiple angles, their attacks seemingly random, but actually carefully coordinated. Each strike weakened a different system, creating cascading failures that the Confederate ships couldn't repair fast enough. Sir, Martinez called out. We're detecting multiple FTL signatures. Confederate reinforcements incoming. Right on schedule, Cooper replied. Signal all ships. Initiate Operation Ghostwalker. The human fleet vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving behind a field of crippled Confederate vessels. But they weren't retreating. They were relocating to their next hunting ground. Message from Fleet Command, Martinez reported. Similar attacks have succeeded in 3 other sectors. The Confederation's supply lines are in chaos. Cooper nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. Send word to all Wolfpack commanders. Happy hunting. Let's show these aliens why Earth's navies were the most feared forces in our history. The TNS Normandy disappeared into FTL, leaving behind a simple message floating in space. The wolves send their regards. The age of formal space combat was over. The era of the wolf packs had begun. High Commander Zextal led his elite Shadow Strike force through the streets of what humans called Denver, one of Earth's many capital cities. The mission had seemed simple: decapitate human leadership and force a quick surrender. But after 3 days on the ground, nothing about this world made sense. Status report, he demanded, his scales shifting color with frustration. Sir, Sub-Commander Vexhall responded. We've located another command center, but he hesitated. It's in what appears to be a civilian recreation facility. Zextal hissed in confusion. The humans had hidden military infrastructure throughout their civilian areas, making every street a potential battlefield. His forces had already lost 3 squads to what they'd thought were simple eating establishments. Movement ahead, one of his scouts reported. A group of young humans. Through his advanced combat visor, Zextal watched as several human children played what appeared to be a simple game. But their movements, he'd seen those patterns before. They're running basic combat drills, he realized aloud. Their games are training exercises. Before he could process this information, the street erupted in chaos. The children disappeared into pre-prepared hidden passages, and every window in the area became a firing position. His squad found themselves under attack from all directions. Fall back, he ordered, but it was too late. The humans had sprung their trap. What the Confederation had failed to understand was that Earth itself was one giant military installation. Every city had its own defense force, every neighborhood its own militia, and every citizen basic combat training. Sir, Vexhall called out. The local communication network, what they call social media. It's being used to coordinate attacks. Civilians were using their personal communication devices to track Confederation movements, sharing information through what seemed like casual messages and pictures. By the time the Shadow Strike forces realized what was happening, the humans had already adapted their tactics. Multiple explosions reported in Sectors 3 and 4, another officer reported. They're using their transportation tunnels, subways, as ammunition depots. Zextal watched in horror as a group of his elite warriors was driven back by what appeared to be kitchen staff from a local restaurant, armed with nothing more than modified cooking equipment and an intimate knowledge of their territory. "Sir, we've lost contact with Teams 5 through 8, Vexal updated. The humans are using something called flash mobs, large groups appearing suddenly from multiple directions. A loud explosion rocked the street. Zextal turned to see one of his armored vehicles, disabled by what appeared to be a civilian transport, packed with explosives and driven by a grinning human elder. These people, he muttered, they're all warriors, every single one of them. His command center received a transmission from another unit in what the humans called Moscow. The message was simple. Entire squad lost to civilian resistance. They're using the winter weather against us. Request immediate extraction. Similar reports flooded in from Tokyo, London, New York, and dozens of other cities. Each told the same story. Civilian population engaging in coordinated resistance, using their environment as a weapon. "Sir," Vexal said, his voice shaking, "I've analyzed their historical records. This is something they call asymmetric warfare. They've been practicing it against each other for centuries." A young human female appeared at the end of the street, holding what looked like a simple communication device. She smiled and waved at the Confederation forces. "Get down," Zextal ordered, but again, it was too late. The girl pressed a button on her device, and the street's automated cleaning machines, reprogrammed by local technology students, emerged from their storage bays, now armed with improvised weapons. "Full retreat," Zextal finally ordered. "We cannot fight an entire species of warriors. Every human is a potential combatant, every tool a possible weapon, and every structure a fortress." As his forces withdrew from Earth's surface, Zextal made one final entry in his combat log. The humans have no central command to destroy because their entire society is built for war. They don't just fight wars, they live them. The Confederation has made a terrible mistake in provoking this species. The Shadow Strike Force's retreat was broadcast live on human entertainment networks, with civilians adding musical soundtracks and humorous commentary. Even their victory celebrations, Zextal realized, were combat training in disguise. Lieutenant Ashley Martinez stood on the bridge of the modified cargo ship Lucky Strike, her eyes fixed on the massive Confederation battle fleet ahead. Around her, 50 similar vessels, converted civilian ships stripped down and packed with explosives, moved into attack formation. "All ships report ready," Communications Officer John Reynolds announced, his voice steady despite what they were about to do. "Operation Kamikaze is go." The name had been chosen deliberately, honoring an ancient Earth tactic that the Confederation's military analysts had dismissed as primitive and illogical. They were about to learn why desperation bred innovation. "Send the final message to Fleet Command," Martins ordered. "The wind rises. Let's show these aliens what human determination really means." The Confederation fleet's formation was perfect. As always, their ships arranged in geometric patterns that their combat AI had calculated to be optimal. They detected the approaching human ships, but classified them as minimal threats, their sensors showing nothing but basic civilian drives and minimal weapons. They never saw the real threat coming. "All ships, execute sunburst maneuver," Martins commanded. The human fleet split apart, each vessel taking a different vector. The Confederation's AI, programmed to expect coordinated attacks, couldn't process the seemingly random movement patterns. Commander David Turner, leading the electronic warfare team from the stealth cruiser Shadow Dancer, watched his screens light up. Their AI is trying to predict our attack vectors, initiating protocol chaos. The humans had learned that Confederation ships relied on pattern recognition. So they gave them patterns, thousands of them, all contradicting each other. Every human ship broadcast different signatures, creating an electromagnetic storm that overwhelmed the enemy's predictive systems. They're switching to manual control, Turner reported with satisfaction. Phase 1 complete. That's when Martinez gave the order that would change space warfare forever. All ships, light the fuse. The converted civilian ships suddenly accelerated to maximum speed, their engines modified to run well beyond safety limits. The crews had known from the start that this was a one-way mission. For Earth, the unified cry echoed across all channels as the first wave of ships slammed into the Confederation's shields. The explosions were beyond anything the Confederation had expected. Each human ship had been packed with a mixture of conventional explosives and experimental matter-antimatter devices. Their shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and kinetic strikes, couldn't handle the sheer destructive force. By the first light, a Confederation commander's intercepted transmission rang out. They're sacrificing their own ships, their own crews. This defies all combat logic. Martinez's voice was calm as she guided the Lucky Strike toward its final target, the Confederation's command ship. That's always been their problem. They think war should be logical. The second wave hit before the Confederation could recover from the first. Ships that their doctrine said should run away instead accelerated toward them. Crews that should have surrendered instead laughed in the face of death. Their formation is breaking, Turner called out. Multiple capital ships trying to retreat. Their entire command structure is in chaos. The Lucky Strike lined up its final approach. Martinez opened a channel to all remaining human ships. Remember what they did to Proxima. Remember Earth. Make it count. The Confederation's combat computers crashed as they tried to process this new form of warfare. Their entire military doctrine was based on the preservation of forces, the logical application of superior technology. They had no protocols for an enemy that would gladly trade one ship for one ship, who saw victory as more important than survival. Final message from Fleet Command. Reynolds reported, "The wind is with you." They're launching Phase 3. As the Lucky Strike made its final run, the real human battle fleet emerged from FTL behind the shattered Confederation formation. They found an enemy in disarray, their perfect formations broken, their AI systems overwhelmed, and their crews in shock. Martinez's last words were broadcast across all frequencies. "See you in Valhalla. Earth prevails." The Lucky Strike's impact split the Confederation command ship in half, its antimatter core creating an artificial star that burned for 3 full minutes. In those 3 minutes, the entire balance of the war shifted. The Confederation would later write in their military archives, "On this day, we learned that true horror is not an enemy with superior technology, but one who values victory above life itself." General Michael Hayes stood before the combined council of the Galactic Confederation, his dress uniform sharp and crisp in the crystalline chamber. The same morning that once sparked fear, caution, Terran Warship detected, now flashed on screens throughout Confederate space as a promise of protection. The first lesson, he addressed the gathered alien representatives, is that warfare isn't about technology. It's about will. Behind him, footage played from the various battles. The Ghost's first stand, the Lions of Proxima, the Wolf Packs, and the Sacrifice Fleet, each showing how humanity had overcome superior technology with superior determination. High Commander Zextal, now Earth's strongest advocate in the Confederation, stepped forward. Our forces have begun integration with human military advisors. The results are unprecedented. The Chamber's holographic display showed joint training exercises. Confederation ships, once bound by rigid formation, now moved with human unpredictability. Their crews learning to think independently, to adapt, to survive. You asked us why we chose peace, Hayes continued, pacing the chamber floor. Why, after defeating your greatest fleets, we offered friendship instead of conquest. The answer is simple. Because that's what humans do. We don't just fight wars, we learn from them. The display shifted to show the new Joint Defense Initiative. Human instructors teaching Confederation forces everything from hand-to-hand combat to strategic planning. The aliens were learning to fight without their AI crutch, to trust their instincts, to think creatively. Yesterday's enemy can be tomorrow's greatest ally, Hayes explained. We learned that from our own history. Every war we fought against ourselves taught us something. Now it's your turn to learn. In training grounds across Confederation space, human veterans shared their knowledge. They taught the art of asymmetric warfare, the value of independent thinking, and most importantly, the power of controlled aggression. Sir, a young Confederation officer addressed Hayes after the council session. Our analysts still can't understand one thing. How did your species develop such advanced combat doctrine without external threats? Hayes smiled. We were our own greatest teachers. Every human conflict, every battle in our history was practice for this moment. We didn't know it then, but fighting ourselves made us strong enough to fight anyone. The implementation of human military doctrine had immediate effects. Confederation forces began operating in wolf packs, learning the art of three-dimensional combat. Their officers started playing human strategy games, developing the same instincts that made Earth's military so effective. The greatest weapon, Hayes told his alien students, is the one between your ears. Technology can fail, but innovation never does. Reports came in from across the galaxy. Pirates and raiders, once the scourge of Confederate space, now fled at the first sign of joint human Confederation patrols. The warning, caution, Terran Warship detected, had become a symbol of safety rather than fear. You've changed us, Zextal admitted to Hayes during a private meeting. Our young now play your games, practice your tactics. Some even want to study on Earth. Hayes nodded. And that's the final lesson. The best way to prevent a war is to be really, really good at fighting one. Peace through strength, but strength through understanding. The Chamber's final display showed the latest graduation ceremony at Earth's military academy. Humans and aliens training together, learning from each other, growing stronger together. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was leading that change. We could have conquered you, Hayes concluded his address to the council. Instead, we chose to teach you. Because that's what makes humans different. We don't just win wars, we learn from them. And now, so will you. As Hayes left the chamber, a message flashed across his personal display. Another graduation class was ready at the academy. Another group of aliens ready to learn the art of human warfare. The final entry in the Confederation military archives read, "The day we feared humans was the day we misunderstood them. They weren't warriors because they loved war. They were warriors because they understood it. And now, thanks to their guidance, so do we." The galaxy had changed forever, and the warning that once meant death now promised life. Caution, Terran Warship detected. Stand by for assistance.